He lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and the mire, and he set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. He lifted me from the old, from the struggles from when I was weak, and he gifted me with the new, a firm place to stand. He said this in Psalm 34:18. 17 years ago, I was really struggling with this kind of a thing. And this verse just resonated in my heart, and I've kept it, and I've thought about it, I've meditated on it, and I've shared it with other people. Anybody comes to me who's struggling with something like this, I say, hey, here's what this verse did to me. In Psalm 34:18, David wrote it. He said, the Lord is close. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. Whatever you're going through, he's close. And he saves those who are crushed in spirit. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. And he saves those who are crushed in spirit. He lifts us from the old struggles, from our weaknesses, and he gifts us with the new. He restores us. I had another opportunity to apply it when I first got to Manila. We fly across the international date line. It's 12 hours different in time zone there. And the first night, we got in a hotel. It wasn't too bad, but my room, something wasn't right. And I couldn't sleep. I'm already a mess. I stayed up all night on the plane reading Tony Dungy's book. I couldn't put it down. And so I'm there, and I just can't sleep. There's nothing to watch on TV that I can understand, and the picture wasn't very good anyway. But I like I said, I used to do auctions every weekend, and the car fumes eventually would just kill me. I'd get splitting. The headaches would just kill me. I'd feel like I want to throw up. I would take Tylenol 3 with me to get through those things, and this night was feeling like that all over again. And I'm kind of, you don't really realize what's happening. I'm smelling smoke. And you've probably been in a hotel room where maybe somebody's smoking next door or close to the vent below or something, and that's just like filtering your room. So I figured that's what's going on. I'm thinking, I'm dying. And I got like 7 hours before I'm going to see another human being again. I'm dying. This is killing me. I'm thinking, oh, God, why am I here? I start justifying why I should have been home. I should be with my kids. We were doing this week and that this week. And what am I doing here? This is crazy. Why did I do this? Why did I do this? And I just struggled all night. I didn't sleep all night. And then you'll appreciate this, Kelly. I woke up the next morning, knocked on Derek's door across the hallway. He opens his door. I go, what is this? It's our room, man. I said, your room? Your room is nice. What's that smell? He said, I think it's that guy. And I said, no. Your room doesn't smell like smoke. I'm dying over there with a headache. He goes, dude, we'll just change your room. Let's go. Come on. And we walked down to the front. He saw my room, smelling the smoke and everything. We walked down the front. The lady started laughing. It's kind of like a smoker's room. And smoke was, she said, there wasn't anybody smoking beside me. The smoke was in the carpet. The smoke was in the walls. The smoke was in the bedspread. And that's what was just killing me. And they put me in a nice new room, smoke-free. Smoke-free. New meant new carpet. And so it was just another time that next morning, where I got to say, you know what? I needed strengthened for an audience of one. This is, I was out there. I was really, I was in the muck and the mire and the mud in the way I was feeling about life, a very good thing that we were doing, that God was orchestrating in us. And he strengthened me again. What would happen if you would renew your strength, your weakness, whatever that may be, in the person of God who lifts and gifts? If you would focus on and seek the who, not the do. We already know what one of those things would happen. He would lift and he would gift. He would lift you from that old when you are strengthened for an audience of one from those struggles, and he will gift you with the new. So David, he surrendered for an audience of one. He battled for an audience of one. He was strengthened for an audience of one. And David worshiped for an audience of one. David worshiped for an audience of one. The Ark of the Covenant had the 10 Commandments in it. And in a battle, the Philistines had taken it away. And when the Philistines got it, everything started going bad for them, and they wanted to get rid of it. They wanted to give it back. They kind of sent it away to the Israelites. And when the Israelites got it, they were bordering on using it as a good luck charm. And they were being a little careless with it, kind of like an idol. And in fact, David had conquered Jerusalem, and he had wanted to bring in the ark 3 months prior, and they were being very careless with it. And in fact, a guy reaches up to kind of stop it from falling off. It sounds like it's a good thing, but what the writer's trying to tell us is they were being very careless with the Ark of the Covenant that housed the Ten Commandments, and the guy died. The guy died that reached up and tried to save it. So David had 3 months to think about this. And the ark sat in this guy's place, and the guy was blessed, and his family was blessed, and everything they had done. And David got to reflect, probably, on how they were to handle that with great care and reverence. And so David brings it in 3 months later with great care to Jerusalem. And this is where we pick it up in 2 Samuel 6:14. David, wearing a linen ephod, which is a priestly garment, danced before the Lord with all his might. David, wearing a linen ephod, danced before the Lord with all his might. Now, his wife, Michal, his first wife, who was King Saul's daughter, didn't like it very much. And she kind of told him off about it. And you might think, well, what's that all about? Well, she was probably influenced by her dad, Saul, who had taken worship of God from a 24/7 thing that was in David's heart to probably kind of like a convenient thing whenever he wanted it to work for him, trying to manipulate the deed of the universe, maybe to an hour a week. Now, wait a minute, that should sound kind of familiar. Because here's the risk. We run the risk of limiting worship to a particular style in a certain building during a specific hour on one day during the week. Our risk, if people take our faith seriously, is that we run the risk of making worship, limiting it to a particular style in a specific building during a certain hour on a certain day of the week. And David's showing this radical paradigm shift, and she didn't like it. So here's what he goes on to say to her, not liking it. Verses 21, 22. David said to Michal, "It was before the Lord who chose me rather than your father." See, it was before the Lord, the dancing. It was before the Lord in the linen ephod, who chose me rather than your father or anyone from his house, you too, Michal, when he appointed me ruler over the Lord's people Israel. I will celebrate before the Lord. I will become even more undignified than this, and I will be humiliated in my own eyes. But by these slave girls you spoke of, she didn't like him disrobing in front of the slave girls, I will be held in honor. Here's what he's saying, write it down. Worship 24/7. Worship for an audience of one, 24/7. Look how you see this in his heart. It's in Psalm 145 that David wrote. Psalm 145. I will exalt you, my God the King. I will praise your name forever and ever. Every day I will praise you and extol your name forever and ever. Great is the Lord and most worthy of praise. His greatness no one can fathom. And he concludes with this in verse 21. My mouth will speak in praise of the Lord. Let every creature praise his holy name forever and ever. Mitch's translation, worship God 24/7. Worship God the most where people expect it the least. Worship God the most where people expect it the least. On the athletic floors and fields. In your business. In your career, in work. In fact, do you know that there's a Hebrew word that's translated both worship and work? One word translated both worship and work. It tells you what God's perspective really is. It's A-B-A-D, all bad. That's how you can remember. All bad is how it's pronounced. Numbers 4:39 uses it. Worship and work the same. Do you know what happens when you begin to worship God 168 hours a week? When you worship God 24/7? He begins to bless us with this awareness of his presence. 168 hours a week, not just one. And it's what we want. He blesses us with this awareness that David had of God's presence 168 hours a week. When we were in Manila, we did 2 outreach nights. We hung out all day with the kids. I visited the Christian school outside of Manila. I visited what was happening outside the dump. I visited this initiative inside the dump. This whole initiative was started by a pastor who was on television and radio, and he just felt compelled by God to, in essence, be strengthened, worship, battle, surrender for an audience of one. And he said, I just feel like I'm supposed to start these outreaches in the 12 worst places in Manila. Well, this was the worst. And I learned later through a prayer that he gave after when we were driving away that where we were doing the outreaches was the worst of the worst. And so basically everybody, the hundreds of people who came, they all surrendered their lives to Christ. But there was one unique situation. It was a man and his family who sat in the front row the second night where I taught on the invitation.